Mark London.
I'm Elmer Beard. And we are two Southern conservatives in conversation. I believe that's it.
Might be okay. Let's try that one. A little bit to the right, but let's see how it goes. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your 126-year-old retirement.
Following my 126-year-old retirement, I started contemplating on how I want to spend my time, and what I decided on was to do some writing because I talked about it during my teaching career. So I thought about associating and accumulating, gathering information about the Garland County elected officials, especially those that live in Hot Springs. And I was one of them. And rather than just talk about myself, I decided I wanted to write about all the persons who were appointed, volunteered, and ran, or were run, or were elected to public office over a period of years that I was an alderman. But to do that, I would need to be fair and honest with all the candidates and go back as far as I could find information. So I went back to 1954 and I ended in 2010. And the book is called The Challenges. It's all included in the book.
Let me grab one of those for our audience to take a look at here. This is one of Elmer's 3 books that he wrote. There it is. So, in case you want to pick up a copy, we'll tell you how to get a hold of the book later.
That is correct. 63 candidates who filed for public office in Hot Springs over a period of 60 years, and nowhere else in the state do I know of such research having been done. When I started this, I asked my son, I said, approximately how many candidates you think have run for public office over the years? He said about 10. I said, no, I think it's more than that. It's probably about 20. So after a year, I got it to 33. It was about 3 years before I got it to 60.
Do you mean 10 black candidates?
10 black candidates.
Yeah, okay, and there's really 60-something.
Yeah, there was 63 African-American candidates who ran for public office over the years. A bit about this story and this history was, in 1954, after Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, that took place on May the 17th in Washington, D.C., there was a candidate in Hot Springs who was black. His name was Freddie Martin. Freddie Martin had never run for public office, and another candidate who was white, his name was Clifton Martin. He ran. Both candidates ran for the same position. To fast forward this story, the white community did the right thing, but thought they made a mistake when they elected Freddie Martin, a black man, for city alderman, who was running for the same position citywide that Clifford Martin was running for. Clifford was white, Freddie was black, and they elected Freddie against their will. When they woke up the next morning and the paper pointed out what had happened, they rushed into Garland County Courthouse and tried to change their vote. It didn't happen. Freddie Martin remained a black city councilman in 1954, the first in the state of Arkansas and one of the first in the South. That was the spark that caused me to write the book.
Well, I'm really curious now that you've told me this story. What was his subsequent history? Was he able to retain his position that he'd been elected for? And how was he received by the community over time?
Second question first. He was received by the community, by the Board of Aldermen at that time. They allowed him to use the restroom because he didn't have one to use. And he was the only black person in the city at that time was using the same restroom of a white person. However, he was a praying man and he was a church man. They allowed him to begin the Board of Aldermen's meeting with a prayer, and that prayer lasted until this day. Not that prayer, but praying before the Board of Directors of this Board of Aldermen's meetings lasted from 1954 to now. It began with Freddie Martin in 1954. He was received and accepted, and he served 2 years, could not get reelected. He ran, then he ran for election, which was a third term. He lost, and I think that was the 4th time he ran and he lost. That's a brief story on Freddie Martin and the reason for the book that I wrote.
So in 1954, I would have been 2.
I was 17, I believe.
Yeah. You were out, possibly raising Cain and having a good time. I don't know. I certainly had been at 17. So shall we say, experimenting a lot. Anyway, so I thought maybe we might segue here into kind of where we started our conversations together, thinking about current events and trying to decide how to do something ourselves. You may notice by watching our podcast that we are not professional podcasters.
We're new at this, and we're enjoying this.
This is our first introduction to even filming ourselves, so how are we doing? Anyway, I'm sure you'll let us know. We were talking about the state of our current democracy, and what we realized is that we're just, two conservatives from the South, and what we mean by that is, well, at least my take on it is that we're actually very much in favor of conserving the environment, human rights, women's rights.
Correct, all of that.
The Constitution of the United States.
The right to read.
The right to read, yeah, sure. And, following the law, actually paying attention to the laws and practicing them and applying them to everyone. And we have this crazy notion that in the United States of America, it's often been said, we all know there are some differences, but that no one is above the law.
At some point, you and I will disagree on that, but go right ahead. Not right now.
Well, we can disagree anytime, I feel, but if you like to wait, that's okay. So anyway, what I'm thinking of is that we've discovered that recently our Supreme Court has decided that's not, in fact, the case. That, and even though we know that especially wealthy white people get better treatment in the court of law, just across the board from other people, especially if you're broke and you have a darker complexion, your chances of getting a fair verdict in any kind of case is much lower than someone that looks like me. So having that important awareness put out there, I think a lot of people in our country really do know that. Some people are probably, unfortunately, happy with that being the case, but I think that the majority of Americans are like Elmer and I.
I hope so.
We don't think that's the right way to do things, and that establishing a standard back to where we came from, the notion, the language of saying no one is above the law, is something that can help us actually get to that.
One work that I've done as a poet is a poem that I've written, and it's in my second book, which is my first book of poetry, is that some things are so, but not necessarily so. There will be those, or there will be one that will change the law because of who he is or what position he has, and he will be above the law, and we will live with it. That's exactly the example that I have for some things are so, but not necessarily so. And that's philosophical, but it's real. Mm-hmm. You and I will agree, based on what you have said, that some people can get away with some things that I can't get away with.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty.
And the law remains the same thing.
Yeah.
That's an example of some things being so, but not necessarily so.
So one of the things that I thought people might be interested in is who we are. So we'll reveal over time more about ourselves to share with you, and hopefully develop a relationship, and hopefully we'll keep you coming back to watch more of our episodes as we get more proficient at doing this and more, I don't know.
That's our goal. We want an audience.
Yeah.
We don't want your first time of seeing and hearing us to be your last time. We want you to look forward to our returning.
Yeah, and hopefully we're interesting and funny enough to keep you coming back.
Like retired in 1899.
That still gets me going. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah, he's a lot older than he looks, you know. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about a little bit is my personal history as a man of privilege, because, you know, blonde hair, blue-eyed, white, middle-aged American male, pretty much at the pinnacle of...
First person I ever heard say that looked like you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that truth. Go right ahead.
Pinnacle of privilege, you know. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is a time when I was in a Manhattan hotel lobby, and I was at the end of a line of probably 5 or 6 other clients who were ahead of me, and all of them were obviously not European in descent. You know, they had some color, pigment in their skin. They were much darker than me, and the clerk at the counter, and I had no history there. Nobody knew who I was at all. She leaned around the group of people that were standing in front of me and said, "Come on up." And I went, "What? Why?" And I go,
"What a lesson in racial relations."
I said, "No, you take care of these people first. I'll be happy to wait." But I think a lot of people that look like me, we're pretty much oblivious to the notion that we actually have privilege. Because, you know, it's like a fish in the sea. We can't really tell. Because I can remember as a child, and I think about this now, as a young teenager, actually, and I'm not especially proud to tell you this story, but I was driving around with a couple of my friends, and we had a 12-pack of beer. I was, I think, 17, and my friends were my age, and I was driving the car, and we were drinking beer as we were driving down the street.
Driving and drinking, drinking and driving.
We got pulled over by the police, and the police go, "Oh, man," you know, and they took the beer, they poured it out, and they said, "Put this in the trunk, the rest of the beer, and be really careful, and we'll, you know, just don't do this again." And I thought to myself, in subsequent years, oh my God, if I was black and that happened on the ground, cuffs, you know, just, you know, and I've never really quite understood that. To me, someone like who looks like Elmer is, you know,
I may have been still locked up.
Yeah, we wouldn't have met if he had been me in that circumstance, right? Yeah, it's like I'd be coming to visit him, saying how things on the rock is cracking. Oh man, pretty bad. Anyway, I don't think that's right. I think a lot of people in our country are very interested in an idea, along with our other ideas of conserving the rule of law and the Constitution and the environment and all those things, and women's rights are really important.
That is correct.
You know, most of us, I don't think, believe that we should be superior because of our color. I'm not afraid of Elmer because he's black.
Thank you.
He doesn't threaten me at all. I'm
not after your billfolder.
Yeah. So I have this idea, you know, we saw some guys in Charlottesville, North Carolina, who have obviously been fed a line of fearfulness and hatred from some various sources that a lot of us are exposed to on a daily basis. And I think that they were marching down the street carrying the tiki torches. A lot of us will remember that at a time when one of their members actually drove his car into a crowd of people and killed a young 35-year-old woman. And, you know, they were all chanting, "Jews will not replace us." And I'm going, well, what are the chances anyway? Where did this notion come from? Is this a thing? Is this a real? Are we supposed to be afraid of Jewish people because they're going to replace us?
Those believe me, are very small.
How in the hell are they going to do it? That's what I'm curious about. So what are we so afraid of that we need to march down the street with our torches and really we're tough and mean and we're going to stop them? And so I've come up with a slogan. It's called the way I see it is, fools will not replace us.
That
and
is correct.
Hegemons
Statement.
will not enslave us. So hegemons comes from hegemony, which is a form of authoritarianism, not unlike what we're subjecting ourselves to now in the